views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Open, the one and only show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I'm your host, Daren. Jaime will update you on what's happening in and around our borough, as well as across New York City. Well, coming up on today's show, we go front and center with Odyssey House. We'll discuss how they're helping New Yorkers in need to overcome drug and alcohol abuse. And then also, we'll learn how another organization is working to create pathways to lifelong empowerment and success for transition-aged and aged-out foster youth in New York City. And then we'll meet an organization that will talk about how COVID has impacted the autism community and the signs and symptoms you need to know about autism in children. And then a little later, we'll discuss how one school is trying to raise vaccine awareness during the pandemic. We'll have more details on that. And finally, we'll learn how one not-for-profit is encouraging children to learn culture through food. So stay tuned, because all this and much more is heading your way. Right now, we're officially open. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Open. I am Daren Jaime, and today is Wednesday, April 7th. And of course, you're watching Open, a live and interactive program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to your TV set. We also want to welcome our viewers on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, as Open is also being broadcast on the MNN channel. You can also stay connected to us, as we are also on our social media platforms at BronxNet TV, and then our website at bronxnet.org. A lot has gone on throughout the course of the past week, and certainly we can't take you through everything, but certainly we can review a couple of things with our Bronx updates. We start off with coronavirus news. Members and volunteers of Community Action for Safe Apartments staged a rally to make sure rent relief comes to Bronx residents who've been hit hard by the pandemic. Our BronxNet reporter, Arlie Makoko, brings us the story.
Each of us here lose some income during this pandemic. That's why we're here.
Here is outside the offices of Speaker of the Assembly Carl Heastie on Gun Hill Road and Fenton Avenue. With the state budget deadline just days away, staff and volunteers from Community Action for Safe Apartments, or CASA, stage a rally to make sure rent relief comes to people like Maria Tu Diallo, who came to them for help.
I lost my job, and I lost family member.
Joining her was Gil Florencio, who spoke in Spanish and was also impacted by the pandemic.
Ahora estamos en esta manifestación para cancelar la renta.
We have to get the message out that Carl Heastie, leader of the Assembly, has within him the power to cancel rent.
And it's not just renters, says CASA leader Fitzroy Christian, whose group helped to see the passage of the landmark right to counsel legislation in 2017. He shared the other reason why protesters are here.
To make sure that the small homeowner who lost his job or her job and cannot pay their mortgage, they have to be protected. The small businesses, as we see around here, whose businesses are floundering because people have no money, they're not shopping as much as they were, and they're in danger of not being able to meet their rents or can't pay their mortgage, that they too have to be protected.
CASA is also proposing legislation to tax New York's high-income earners, charging they can amass billions in a short period of time to further strengthen housing laws that protect renters.
With a budget deadline looming, they are giving it all they have here in the Bronx, as well as locations around the state. For BronxNet, this is Arlene Makoko.
And thank you, Arlene. We stay now with community news, as the Bronx Community Council gathered with the family of 20-year-old Delilah Vasquez, who was slain in her apartment. Our BronxNet reporter Jericho Tran has the story. He brings it to us now.
Justice for Delilah! If y'all know something, let the family know!
Cries from a family and a community in pain rang through this block after the death of 20-year-old Delilah Vasquez, who was found shot in the head in this apartment building. Now, candles and pictures lay here in honor of her memory, but residents are calling for an end to the violence in the streets.
And told me that my daughter got shot, and I was here for like an hour looking for her, and I couldn't find her. The cops were trying to help me. It was traumatizing for me.
I'm the one that like seen her going to the ambulance, and it's crazy. Like, I didn't even know that was her going to the ambulance. I just see somebody, and I found out the same night.
Police found Vasquez in an East Gun Hill Road apartment around 10 p.m. earlier this month.
I feel like I could have a heart attack and die. It's like, this is crazy. Like, it's unfair that your own friends kill you.
Following the shooting, several people believed to be blood gang members were seen exiting the building. The gun was tossed out the window. Residents expressed concern over blood gang members taking control of the apartment building before the incident occurred.
As far as the investigation goes, I don't want to get into too many details about it. There's been some arrests in relation to it. The Bronx DA is working closely with us, obviously.
The death of Vasquez highlighted the surging issue of gun violence, with 7 shootings this year versus 3 shootings last year in the area, and 25 shootings in 2020 versus 17 shootings in 2019.
You ain't a man if you hide behind your homeboys and you shoot a 20-year-old defenseless girl. You're a coward.
Neighbors peered out of their buildings down at the vigil as the calls for justice grew louder.
Say something! Say something! Say something! And nowhere in the world this lady should be grieving like that!
Friends expressed their love and reflected on Vasquez's life.
A beautiful princess. She was full with love. My heart is broken. Like, she just left me open. It's like, I just want justice for my friend, that's all.
Police are asking anybody with information to come forward. Please call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-577-TIPS. Reporting for BronxNet, Jericho Tran.
Thank you, Jericho. Of course, we'll follow this story and more. Stay with us. We've got more show. That's about all for our Bronx updates. We'll return right after this.
We built a media network for you.
BronxNet TV.
Come learn in your new state-of-the-art studios at Lehman College.
At Mercy College.
And coming soon to the South Bronx in the Hub.
Inspire with your stories, culture, history.
Your Bronx on BronxNet.
Engage with us.
Connect with us at your channels and at BronxNet.tv.
Learn, engage, inspire. BronxNet TV.
From the Bronx
to the world.
BronxNet.
Welcome back to the show. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected many individuals across the globe, particularly right here in New York City and even more close to home, the borough of the Bronx. The Bronx remains one of the areas hardest hit by COVID-19, but still has one of the lowest rates of vaccination inoculation across the city. A recent survey found that 8% of Bronx residents have decided against getting the vaccine. Meanwhile, 49% indicated concern about side effects as a significant factor in their decision. Bronx Public Charter Schools has hosted a bilingual virtual forum for school staff, students, parents, and families that are aimed at dispelling some of the myths attributed to the COVID-19 vaccine. Here now to share more is the CEO of Public Prep, Janelle Bradshaw, and Pediatrics Intensivist at Children's Hospital at Montefiore, Dr. Denise Nuñez. And we welcome you both here to the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess I'll go first off with you, Janelle. Share with us a little bit about this vaccination hesitancy. We know that it's huge in communities of color. What has been your experience?
Yeah, so again, thank you so much for having us. As someone who was born and raised in the Bronx, this is something that's really near and dear to my heart. And what we're hearing from our families and our staff very early on was concerns about whether or not the vaccine was rushed through this label of the idea that it's somehow experimental, that people were concerned about just the history of vaccines in our communities. And later on, what we've heard is just access, the ability to sign up for an appointment and have the wherewithal to have 6 different logins, to be on at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, to understand who's eligible. I'm really excited that as of tomorrow, 16 and up are eligible, because explaining who was eligible was also creating a level of hesitancy. And so now, through our town halls and partnerships with Somos, we've been able to really dispel these myths and really help our families and our staff get the information that's needed so that they can do what we are all doing, which is do our part to get vaccinated. And so those are the things that we're hearing on the ground here in the Bronx.
Dr. Nuñez, a little bit about what you're hearing, because obviously as a doctor, a lot of questions, a lot of skepticism. What are some of the common things that you're hearing, and how can we debunk some of these myths?
Oh yeah, so not hearing, but also living it. Because as a pediatric intensivist and also working in the urgent care and as a provider in the community, there's a lot of misinformation, and a lot of people don't think it's safe. A lot of people think that there's a lot of side effects, and exactly that there's no scientific base behind the vaccines. And it was amazing being able to speak to these parents and not only explain to them about how the vaccine was created, all the data behind this, the production of these vaccines, but also explaining it in lay terms. Sometimes you want to explain things to parents or to the community in medical terms, and people don't understand it. So it was really nice to explain and then actually hear back the questions again, and then understand where they were confused. And really, it's they were thinking more of this vaccine was created for a purpose, or are they injecting the virus? People are very afraid of what happened to us, to the Latino community, and all of us here in the Bronx. And they were thinking that they were getting the vaccine injected, so the coronavirus injected. So clarifying all those myths was very important for us and for me. So those are the main things I've been hearing, and very afraid of side effects, very afraid of everything that's said in the social media. People have a lot of social media access to it, and they can just hear all this misinformation and they believe it, sadly. So having this time one-on-one with them and explaining all their doubts and questions was amazing. So I'm very happy we're able to do this.
For parents and this opportunity, families to actually have an opportunity to discuss this, talk to us about the concept and how parents now have this opportunity, and families also as well.
Absolutely. So we, just in my own personal networks, have had opportunities to be a part of amazing town halls that had medical experts. I'm a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, and have participated in many webinars in my own local community that helped me make decisions. And I wanted to make sure that our families had the same level of access, because when you are hearing directly from medical experts and being able to ask your questions, I remember one webinar that I went to that was shared through blackdoctors.org that featured Dr. Fauci on Facebook Live many, many months ago. It really helped me understand that when it was my turn, I would have to do my part and get vaccinated. And so when educators became eligible on January 11th, I was first in line. And again, I experienced everything our families are going through, trying to sign up and find a vaccination and ending up outside of my neighborhood to get vaccinated because it was that important. We created in our own network opportunities to share our stories, because we knew the importance of being trusted members of the community to say, I've been vaccinated, when it's your turn to do your part, and really understanding what the barriers were for staff and families. And again, as we sort of went through the different waves and months, as more and more people became eligible, what we saw was actually less about hesitancy and myths and more about access and how do you actually sign up for a vaccine. And I think the work that is happening in our communities around mobile vaccines, really thinking about the ability to sign up for an appointment through calling, because many of our families do not have access to Wi-Fi, certainly stable internet connection. We started pairing staff members up with each other. So there were, we call them Sherpas internally, someone who would help you get a vaccine, and then eventually created a partnership with the local NAACP so that our staff and families have access to a dedicated vaccine scheduler, someone who's certified in New York City, and through a phone call can help you sign up for a vaccine. It's that important for us, and we're working on, creating a site at one of our schools where our families can get vaccinated, because we know when we partnered with the Mexican Coalition for Families, for example, for testing, that brought more families out of the shadows. And so, again, we like to think that we are all doing our part by A, knowing our status, and B, getting vaccinated when you're eligible. The question that we get now from families is, when will their children be vaccinated? And so again, we have seen a level of focus shift, but what we are pushing right now is we want adults in families, multi-generational homes, to be vaccinated. Again, now that they're eligible, 30 and up as of last week, 16 and up tomorrow, to be vaccinated right now. And we'll cross the bridge on children when that becomes available. But certainly for us, those are just some of the examples that we saw of how I wanted to use my own personal knowledge and resources to expand it and give back to my community, who I think, if given the information, will rise to the occasion and get vaccinated.
Dr. Nuñez, before we wrap things up, I want to have an opportunity to talk to you for a second about these pop-up sites, right? And taking it to the streets, if you will, and the effectiveness of it. For someone who doesn't understand the effectiveness of taking these vaccinations to the streets, please explain from a medical perspective what it means to you.
Well, it's going to the community. So we are doctors from the community, and it's going towards where our patients are. So that has been very important, and we've been able to vaccinate a lot of patients this way. And more importantly, now all of us in the community, doctors, are able to get the vaccines now, and actually in our own practices, we'll be able to give the vaccines to our patients, which is very, very important, because our patients trust us, trust a community provider. And we have time to sit down with them and explain to them, just in case they have any questions. So it is very important that patients come to their providers. We look like them, we speak their languages. So we're very happy that soon we will have our vaccines in the community, the same we have in all these pop-ups locations, that thanks to Somos Community Care, we're able to do this with all the 2,500 providers we have, the community providers. So now we're going to have them in our practices, and our patients are going to be able to come to us. Because the access of getting the appointments has been terrible, and the websites and it's just people don't know how to use them. So sure, definitely the phone calls have been great. Partnering, having community health workers like we have also to help them make the appointments, but now they're going to be able to come to us directly, which is amazing. So this has been a great experience, and I know that with the providers having their vaccines in their practices, we'll be able to reach many more people now.
Well, I want to thank you both for the work that you guys are doing for both access and then also awareness. Dr. Nuñez, I know you've been working some long hours. Thank you for being with us here on Open. Janelle, thanks again. And of course, we'll get our viewers up to speed as to how to be connected to you. Thank you both.
Thank you so much.
All righty. Well, I want to let you know, if you want more information, visit their website at publicprep.org. And then you can also follow them on Facebook and also Twitter at Public Prep. We encourage you, please don't go anywhere. We do have more show. Stay with us. We'll be right back in a few. And welcome back to the show. April is National Autism Awareness Month. Autism Speaks is an organization that's actually dedicated to promoting solutions across the spectrum throughout the lifespan for the needs of individuals with autism as well as their families. Throughout the month, they'll be focusing on sharing stories and providing opportunities to increase understanding and acceptance of people with autism, fostering worldwide support. This year, they're committed to keeping the spirit of the month alive, as now more than ever, they know the autism community needs support, kindness, as well as compassion. Here now to tell us more is the Field Development Manager, NYC at Autism Speaks, Trish Rollins. And Trish, good to have you here with us here on Open. I'll begin with just the simple question about, for somebody who may not be so familiar, share with us a little bit about the signs and the symptoms of autism.
Some of the signs, some people with autism can be reliably diagnosed as early as 18 months old, but the average age of diagnosis is more around 4 to 5 years old. But after 15 months, if your child has limited or no eye contact or unusual eye patterns, like staring at something for an extended period of time, if they have limited or severely delayed response to their name or no response to you calling their name, or not using gestures like pointing at the things that they want and kind of using their hands as their form of communication. Those are some signs for children with autism as early as 15 months old. A little bit later in the age, around after 3 years old, repetitive behaviors, loss of speech, loss of social skills, little peer or no peer interaction. You know, sometimes they'll play differently. You know, you'll give a kid a bunch of toy cars, and instead of making them go vroom, they'll just line them up in straight, organized rows. And it really does depend on the individual. It's different for everybody, but those are just some of the signs that you might notice in a child.
For your organization, wrapping around services to be able to meet the community that's affected by autism, talk to us about some of the services that you provide for those who have been affected.
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, our autism response team is such a great resource for families to reach out to. We have, I want to say, around 50 toolkits on our website. They're all free to access, to download, and they range from the first 100 days of diagnosis, which can be a very overwhelming time for parents when you find out your child is diagnosed, and like the doctor will give you some information, but it's a lot to digest. So the 100-day toolkit is one of our most popular toolkits, and it just kind of gives parents that roadmap of what to do over the next 100 days. And then just throughout the entire lifespan, you know, for their toolkits for sleeping, for different medical issues that they might have, for going to the dentist. There are toolkits for other family members to help them have a better understanding of what autism spectrum disorder is. And then it goes on throughout teenagers, transitioning into adulthood, finding housing, finding employment. We have an online directory, so if you are looking for a particular service provider in your area, that's available on our directory. And our advocacy team works so hard for families. Locally, we have our advocacy ambassadors who work with our local congressmen, and then we have our advocacy ambassadors working on a federal level as well.
So for those persons who are taking part in autism, Autism Awareness Month, an introduction, people are becoming more and more aware. But one of the things that I always ask is about diagnosis, right? Because it begins at the place of diagnosis. What's the average age that we can see for diagnosis for children?
The average age right now is around 4 or 5 years old, but a child can reliably be diagnosed as early as 18 months old. In my own personal experience for working at Autism Speaks for so long, I do feel like I have families that the parent will be a speech language pathologist or something like that. And after a year, they're like, I see it. I know it's happening. Like I could tell already. Others, not until later in life. It really depends on where on the spectrum the child falls and what their needs are. But early diagnosis is just so important, because the earlier they get diagnosed, the earlier they can get the proper treatments to help them to achieve all of their goals in life.
Which brings me to my next question, which is about treatment. What are the treatment options that are available for families who are dealing with someone with autism?
There are a lot of, honestly, it really does depend. So it wouldn't be all of the treatments, but therapy, applied behavioral analysis therapy. It all really depends on what that particular individual needs. Our autism response team is there as a resource for families to help them discuss what their child might need. One of our toolkits is an IEP toolkit, so the individualized education plan. So when students are entering into the school system, the school does a lot to help get them with the right therapies that they need. And we will help them out as they go into their IEP meetings with the schools to make sure that their child is getting all of the services that they're supposed to get in school.
Yeah. And this transition over the last few months, I mean, obviously pretty heavy. We got kids now getting back into the classroom. What's it been like for you in terms of being able to just keep up and help out?
It's been stressful. It's been a challenge, but it's also been beautiful to see some people are thriving in it. You know, there are some students that do really well with at-home learning. That, you know, going to school and being in that routine was overwhelming sometimes. So being at home, like some of them are really thriving, some are not, some are regressing because they're not getting all of the right services that they're supposed to get in school. You know, a parent at home with their child could only do so much in terms of occupational therapy. It's not the same as having an actual professional do it. So there's definitely been peaks and valleys.
Yeah, and the virtual component, I mean, it's a struggle. I think it's a struggle for anybody, right? When you think about just an adult, you think about we who are supposed to be technologically connected as adults sometimes aren't as connected as we need to be. So when you pass that on now in the family line, you've got children, and in particular, you're trying to help them out. It does become an added level of stress. So what kind of advice do you recommend for parents and families who are struggling to stay virtual, to stay connected amidst all of this?
I think they just need to do what's best for their particular child, or if it's an adult on the spectrum, just do what's best for them. You know, everyone has certain rights that they can request different accommodations for whatever it is that they might need. And, you know, it's tough, but I think it's just something we all have to kind of power through and hopefully come out of this pandemic fully and be on the other side and get back to a different, more normal world than we used to be in.
Yeah, you talked about getting to the other side. And I appreciate your transparency, by the way, because it's rough, right? Sometimes it's stressful, and we're just trying to make the best of literally a bad situation. But when things start to get a little bit better, what do you foresee happening, particularly with the organization as you move forward out of April as we head towards the summer?
Well, we do have all of our walks coming up in the fall. Usually we would have our walks throughout the year. This year we pushed them all back to the fall just for the sake of hoping for, you know, more people to be vaccinated and for herd immunity to kick in by the fall. Some of our walks are still virtual events, but some will be in-person events for families to go to. And that way they can interact with our local service providers, they can interact with our autism response team, get the resources we need, and still gather as a community, but in a very safe and socially distanced plan. It's going to be a walk on wheels car parade, and we have them all throughout the country, 6 of them throughout New York State. And that's kind of what I'm most looking forward to in the fall, to getting out there and like seeing people face to face again.
Yeah, Trish, thank you so much for being with us. Certainly we want to continue to bring people information throughout the course of the month. A lot of information, a lot of awareness. Trish Rollins, thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
All righty, Trish has been with us. I want to let you know, if you want more information, visit their website, autismspeaks.org. Follow them on social media at Autism Speaks. Encourage you, please don't go anywhere. Open continues coming up right after this. And welcome back to the show. New York for Children's works to assist over 8,000 youth in foster care and to engage New Yorkers in the effort. The organization's goal is to support efforts to improve the well-being of youth in foster care through education, career development, the acquisition of life skills, and strengthening the child welfare system. Now, joining us to share more and provide further insight is the Executive Director of New Yorkers for Children, Saroya Friedman-Gonzalez. And Saroya, glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here today.
So for someone who doesn't know about your organization.
So I would define New Yorkers for Children. We're an organization that is like a hybrid organization, in that half of our work is dedicated to direct scholarships and financial support to youth primarily in and aging out of the New York City foster care system. And then the other half of our budget and organization is dedicated to programs. We call them innovative programs, where we subgrant funds to community partners to carry out either programs that have promising practices or to test a type of a curriculum. So our work and our budget is really divided into those two areas.
Yeah, you do a lot of different things, and I know part of what you do is youth mentorship. So how do you go about the youth mentorship program?
So our youth advisory board, it's been around for well over a decade. It's a youth-led, meaning that every year there's annual elections, and young people between the ages of 18 and 26 can put their name in to get voted by their peers to various leadership positions. And that group meets monthly. Pre-COVID, it was at our offices. They would meet and they would define in their own agenda, often resource sharing, peer networking, and advocacy in the field of child welfare. However, somewhere around 2018, the young people really made it clear that they wanted more leadership development. So our team, along with the young people, identified a peer educator certification. And that really created our peer mentoring work. And so over the last couple years, over 100 young people have joined our youth peer mentoring program. About half have become certified. And this year, we are finally raised funding to actually hire a youth coordinator who is going to help lead that effort along with our youth academic advisor. And so it's really exciting. It's a wonderful program. The training is over 2.5 days to be a peer educator, but we are also partnering with another organization to actually co-create real curriculum that the young people can use kind of over an 8-week period to do a much deeper training for their peers. And so that's something that's in 2021 also about to launch, to kind of deepen the mentorship and work that young people provide to their peers across the 26 agencies.
You talk about the 26 agencies. You have a huge footprint across the city. Talk to me a little bit about the citywide numbers.
So in terms of citywide, the citywide in terms of ACS has a little over 7,000 young people reported in foster care in 2020. Our organization doesn't, our programs are open to anyone in New York City coming out of foster care, but we typically serve about, pre-COVID, about 1,000 young people a year. And during COVID, our numbers increased to about 2,000. So we don't necessarily serve every single young person in foster care, but we do serve a large portion of them. And we open up our services to all 26 privately subcontracted agencies that are subcontracts of ACS, the Administration for Children's Services.
Talk a little bit earlier about scholarships and how you help with scholarships, particularly for those who are coming out. How beneficial is that to give people that lift when they're on their way out?
Oh my gosh, it's incredibly beneficial. And I think if you speak directly to the youth, they're in a better position to describe how impactful getting a scholarship is. But what we've learned over the years is that providing young people with a monthly stipend outside of perhaps funding that they might get to support their college education, it's a game changer. And we also make sure that the young people don't just get money and stipends, but they have a youth academic advisor who's a licensed mental health counselor who meets with them monthly, to just make sure what other challenges and obstacles are they facing and to provide additional support to them. So these scholarships are very impactful, and they really, our numbers show 90% of our young people re-enroll from one year to the next in college. For that, with the national statistics, it's quite remarkable. So that individualized support is helpful. And in addition, our young people have access to all of our youth development events that we offer, as well as other scholarship programs. They become part of our network and family.
Yeah. And as a question I've asked all throughout the course of the show, with COVID-19 being the huge thing that all of us had to pivot throughout this pandemic, talk to us about your organization and how you've had to make that transition, what it's been like for you.
It's been, for starters, we had to very quickly move our services to remote. And for us, that began in early March when we really started to see what was happening. Since a lot of our transactions with the young people are payments, we quickly moved to an electronic payment system so the young people could receive cash through a transfer and not have to come into the offices. Although through the pandemic, we have kept our offices open at least a couple days a week because things like laptops and some of the young people would prefer to pick up a check. So that was also available to all of our young people. But we also, a lot of the counseling became, remote, as well as our monthly youth advisory board meetings. But the remarkable piece is that the attendance and participation skyrocketed to almost like 100%. We found that over the course of the pandemic, all of our scholars attended their monthly sessions with the academic advisor. We had record numbers of young people joining our monthly Zoom youth advisory board. And the feedback we're getting is that it's incredible to actually be able to join online because they don't have to do the travel time, which for students can be a lot. So it's been great. But yeah.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off. Get.
No, I wasn't going to say anything else except that we also do notice that the peer mentoring piece of the work has been, and the mental health kind of support, the need has really gone up during this pandemic. We're finding that it's really, really tough for our youth to, for this long to be isolated, and a lot of feelings of depression, anxiety, everything that you would imagine that any other young adult is facing, our young people are facing. So we've tried to increase the number of opportunities and types of topical workshops that we've been offering to the youth, just to kind of, make sure that they know people are there for them.
Yeah, it's pretty, nobody can prepare for it. I think that once we got into it, everybody the word that we've said is, it's kind of like building an airplane in the air, but yet and still a lot of people have been able to make the transition. Before we go, talk to us a little bit about what we can expect happening in the near future.
Well, in the near future, the one thing that before we move into the near future, I realize that it's really important to share outside of the emotional need, the financial need. We nearly tripled the number of applications and also expanded the criteria for who could apply for emergency grants. And I just so much funding went out the door for real crises that our youth were facing, particularly those that had aged out of the foster care system, and particularly young parents. Almost 40% of the young people that were asking for emergency cash assistance had one or more young child under 5 in their home, and they were unemployed and not connected to school or work. So that was something that really changed during COVID. We've always primarily focused on students, and we expanded who we served. And we've served almost, close to over 2,000 youth and families throughout COVID, and gave out almost $1.7 million in cash directly to young people, while also operating our our programs. But what we can expect in the future is that so long as we have the resources, we are going to continue to support young people. We feel like we're one of the only organizations that's citywide, open to any young person coming, either aging out or in foster care, and we will continue to serve young people as we can. And the other thing you can expect is that our work and our programming, how we define it and design it, is going to come through direct feedback from the youth. Our youth advisory board is a really powerful group of young people. And so you can expect that our work is going to reflect what the young people want, not what we, feel that they should have. And so we are connecting regularly with our youth to make sure that the resources we offer are in direct connection to what they need.
Saroya, we have to leave it there, but thank you so much for joining us here on Open.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for allowing me to share about New Yorkers. Appreciate it.
Yes. So we want to tell people for more information, you can visit the website at NewYorkersForChildren.org. Also follow them on Facebook and Instagram at New Yorkers for Children. We encourage you, don't go anywhere. We still have more Open. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back right after this. And welcome back to the show. April is National Alcohol Awareness Month, which was developed in order to increase awareness and understanding of the causes and treatment of one of the nation's top public health problems, alcoholism. Odyssey House is a residential substance addiction treatment program helping New Yorkers in need to overcome drug and alcohol abuse, improve their physical and mental health, as well as defeating homelessness. Joining me now to share a little bit more details of this is the Senior Manager, Director of Outpatient Admissions and Recovery Support Services at Odyssey House, Mary Callahan. And Mary, glad to have you here with us here on Open.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. Good. Well, glad to have you with us. And as we said, nice to have you. So let's get right into it. Talk to me a little bit about Odyssey House as we talk about this particular month, National Alcohol Awareness Month. Odyssey House is front and center in confronting those with the issue of alcohol.
Right. So Odyssey House is a multi-service agency that's been operating in New York City since 1967. And we treat alcohol and substance use disorder, as well as co-occurring mental health disorders from the very lowest level of treatment, which is non-intensive outpatient, all the way up to intensive residential treatment. We also provide community-based services in the form of our recovery center and our home and community-based services. So that way we are able to engage folks who may be struggling with alcohol use disorder from the very at the family level, in the community, and all the way up to referrals from the court system. Alcoholism in particular has increased tremendously during the pandemic, with a noticeable impact, particularly on women, increasing up to 19% of chronic alcohol drinking. And the thought behind that is that because many women have lower level jobs and also are required to be the primary caretaker for the children, they have been managing much more and often in isolation from their homes. And this is thought to have been connected to an increase in drinking in general. Additionally, there has been an increase noted in drinking for people who have co-occurring mental health struggles, such as depression or anxiety, where 64% of people who identify as having depression have increased their alcohol consumption. And 41% of those who confirm that they have anxiety concerns have increased their alcohol consumption.
Talk to me a little bit about the opioid drug use, because that's pretty prevalent also during a time such as this. Give me your take on opioid drug use and some of the work that you're doing to help those that are really facing that challenge.
Yeah, opioid use disorder has been has long been a chronic problem, particularly in the Bronx. Bronx for the past several years has had the highest overdose rates in the 5 boroughs. And so it's also linked, opioid use is a substance that's linked particularly with isolation, because folks are more likely to use and not reach out for assistance. So the way Odyssey House has been trying to combat that is by really taking opioid overdose training and to the community, coming out into the streets themselves, providing Narcan training and Narcan kits. Narcan is a medication that's used to overturn overdose, so that a person anybody can be trained in the use of Narcan, because it's very simple. It's just like using an Afrin nasal inhaler. You just notice somebody might be in your household or on the street under the influence, and you can just take the little spray bottle, put it up their nose, and you can throughout the Bronx, training people in the community throughout the course of the pandemic. Really, we have not really dialed back too much on that.
Yeah, and a little bit about your recovery center, because I know also you have a recovery center that's really aimed at helping people really get back on their feet. During the course of this pandemic, what's it been like for the recovery center in dealing with those who've been coming to the doors?
Yeah, so our recovery center is located at 2038 Davidson Avenue in the Bronx, right along the 4 line. So it's very centrally located and co-located within the Davidson Community Center, which has been around since the early 1960s in the Bronx and is well known in the community. Initially with the pandemic, just like everybody else, we had to learn new ways to provide services and shift to telehealth services for the most part, but always having some staff available within the center. And so we learned that we could actually reach a larger audience that way. And even now that vaccinations are here and testing is citywide for COVID-19, we still continue to provide a mix of telehealth services as well as face-to-face services, enabling us to reach out further. So people can call in to support lines at the Recovery Center 6 days a week. People can come in anytime, 6 days a week to the Recovery Center and work one-on-one with a recovery coach. People can receive training in overdose prevention through Narcan at the Recovery Center, as well as access a food pantry, some support around vocational skills, resume writing, family support groups. We have a media night so that people can, come in and receive support throughout the crisis.
And so for people who want to find out about Odyssey House more and the services that you provide, what do they do?
So you can go on www.odysseyhousenyc.org, and it lists all of the services that I have just described.
All righty. Well, Mary Callahan, certainly I want to thank you for coming and being with us here on Open, sharing a little bit about the work of Odyssey House, and then also what goes on throughout National Alcohol Month. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Daren. Nice to be
All righty.
with you.
Now, for more information, please don't hesitate to visit their website. And when you do that, you can find it out more, odysseyhousenyc.org. Also follow them on their social media at Odyssey House NYC. We encourage you, don't go anywhere. We got more show coming up. Open returns right after this. And welcome back. Cultured Kids Cuisine is an international not-for-profit organization whose mission is to educate children about the various cultures through food and cooking. The organization is run solely by 100-plus high school and college students from all over the world, providing resources for children to participate in activities designed to teach culture while engaging in a fun and recreational pursuit. Here now to tell us more is the founder and CEO of Cultured Kids Cuisine, Mia Kotikovski. And Mia, good to have you here on Open.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to share with you about our organization.
Yeah, and so you have a very interesting organization. When you talk about it, you've got high schoolers, and then also you've got some young people who are actually really helping to provide resources.
That's correct. So our main mission is to foster cultural awareness through food, and we do that through a variety of resources. But what's really amazing about our team is that it's solely run by, as you said, over 100 high school and college students. So they are the ones who are providing the resources and activities and services to the little ones. And just like how our services are geared to children around the world, our volunteers come from all around the world, speak all different languages, and come from a variety of cultural backgrounds. So we really are trying to uplift one another and each other's cultures and make sure that everybody is recognized through this experience.
So you have this great cultural awareness through food, and we know that food has a variety of different cultures attached to it. If you go across New York City, one of the greatest things that you could say is there's this great diversity of culture as well as food. And so for you to be able to put your hands on all of these different cultures and all these different diverse backgrounds when it comes to food, how hard a job was that?
Well, we are really fortunate that the organization of our team is that we have a group that is focused on creating the content for our cooking classes. And it's a very, very diverse team. And they themselves, the volunteers on that team, come from a variety of different countries and are really, really passionate about food and sharing history and culture through it. So they do a lot of research. They reach out to a lot of chefs and other people to get the full picture of different foods in each cuisine and how they came to be. And then they write up the lesson plans and recipe kits for the cooking classes to be used by our culinary team. And they practice, they do more research about the country and the food and just the origins of everything to be able to relay it to the children in a very effective and very real way, so that it's as if the kids are almost traveling to the country.
And for the kids, what does it mean? I mean, to have this kind of exposure at such an early age to this variety?
I think they really love it. And the fact that we are introducing it to them at an early age, different foods, and the fact that foods have connection to places around the world, it really broadens their worldview, makes them more aware and appreciative of differences and cultures around the world. And we hope that this organization, our mission, will help to make a more peaceful world, one that has less hate and ignorance towards others, and it starts with the youngest generation. And the other really amazing thing is that we have a lot of picky eaters that come and to our classes, and the parents are so happy because after the class they find that when the children are cooking on their own, they are more willing to try this food that tastes maybe different than what they usually eat or looks different, and this way they're trying these new, nutritious, and really meaningful food options and incorporating it into their diets, and at the same time learning more about different people and different lifestyles.
Yeah, you got some exciting upcoming events. So share with us a little bit about what we can see coming up in the future.
Absolutely. So this month we are traveling to Russia, and this month is going to be filled with classes that are based in Russian cuisine. We have borscht, we have pelmeni, we have lots of really great upcoming cooking classes, and we also have one with a private chef that's leading it. So that's going to be really awesome. The other really great thing that we just started is our food anthropology course for children, where we teach children about different connections between food and other things, which can be gender, it can be economics in food, and lots of really interesting things, just to teach that food is such a great vessel for education. And we also have our e-cookbook that we're launching, which is basically a compilation of all of our cooking classes. So not only does it have different recipes from around the world, it also has a lot of really cool fun facts and things about the origins of the dish and the country that it's from. So that's really great. And we're also inviting a lot more private and professional chefs to come and cook with the kids, so that they may learn a little more about the culinary techniques and be more well versed in that as well.
Amazing. And so for the kids, obviously an opportunity to be exposed to some of the best and the brightest from across the world. How did this all get started for you?
Well, it all started for me in my junior year of high school, where I was volunteering in hospitals, actually. And a lot of children in the pediatric sectors of the hospitals, they were really, they didn't have much to do, and they were watching their TV, staring at their walls, and it really struck me the wrong way. And I just wanted to bring them an activity that would be intellectually stimulating. So what I did is me and my friend, we would hold freelance cooking classes in hospitals. And once the COVID pandemic hit, unfortunately, no volunteers were no longer allowed in hospitals. So I decided to kind of transfer this really amazing service onto an online platform, so we can reach more people and educate more children. And also, with everything going on, we just wanted to make children more culturally aware about each other's differences, and make sure that we are striving to build a more peaceful and more loving and tolerant world.
And when we talk about the work that you're doing right now, obviously impacting kids, you're impacting you're impacting families, but how did you make the connection of really tapping into these people from across the world and to get the buy-in? I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in general, because our volunteers are from all over the world, we have a pretty great reach, which is really beneficial, because our volunteers share it with their families and friends, who share it with their families and friends. And then we have kids from all over the world coming to our classes, and it's a really, really great thing.
So for people who want more information about your upcoming events, to be able to register and get connected, what's the easiest way for them to do that?
I would say they can check out our website. Just type in Culture Kids Cuisine into Google, and you can get to all of our services and register for anything you'd like. Everything is free, so please do check it out.
All righty. Well, Mia, thank you so much. It sounds exciting. I know it is exciting. And hopefully kids will be able to get connected, as well as parents, and in a very diverse kind of way. Mia, thanks so much.
Thank you, Daren. Thank you, everyone.
All righty. Well, listen, if you want more information, you can visit the website at culturedkidscuisine.wixsite.com, and then also follow them on social media at Cultured Kids Cuisine. Well, we come to the end of our show today. Want to thank all of our guests for joining us. And most of all, I want to thank you, the viewer, for tuning in. Now, if you missed any part of today's show, don't forget to catch the recablecast on Optimus Channel 67, Verizon Files be Channel 2133, or anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. And if you want a brand new episode, my girl, Rita Valentine, will be back with you on Friday, bringing you news, arts, entertainment, and the things that you need to know related to COVID-19. Daren, Jaime saying take care, God bless, and most of all, keep this channel wide open.